So he's an ex-Chicago cop, Watts. He is connected to 200, more than 200 exoneration cases of black people being framed with drugs and guns. He was a law enforcement officer. This all came out, and it's still coming out. People are still coming out saying that they were framed by him. A lot of black people that he framed tried to fight, but with not having any money, no way to fight it as far as financially, they just took the plea bargains and they went to jail for some time. And we're going to cover some of these people. But more than 200 people, y'all, that this brother, this black man framed. He was literally running a kingpin organization under the table. He basically shut out all of the drug dealers that was selling drugs, and he was selling drugs, running a kingpin organization under the table. Like the real training day. The real training day. That's what he was doing. Denzel Washington, that was just a movie, but this one, Ronald Watts, ex-Chicago cop, he was going to the poor neighborhoods where black people are and framing them, putting drugs on them, taking money from people. I think it said about he was making a week about $50,000 a week. He basically took over the drug trade in the black community, pushed all the drug dealers out, and he became the head honcho. This was a black officer that was doing this to black people, poor black people that's just trying to make it. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up this brother. This is one of his victims, right? Now, this brother, excuse me, his name is Larry Lomax. He's 65 years old. So this brother was at his relative's house with his brother, and the police just gaffled him up, beat the hell out of him, knocked some of his teeth out, and he was arrested. They told him that he was arrested for selling drugs, and he didn't even have any drugs. So they told him to snitch and say that other people had drugs, and he didn't. So they hit him with a charge of possession of heroin. And so him and his brother went down, and his brother died of cancer while they was locked up. And so he's just been exonerated. Now this brother right here, his name is Derek Mapp. He's 49 years old. So he said he was struggling to breathe because when he got taken to the jail, he was struggling to breathe. For the reason why is because police just ran up on him and started beating him and asking him questions that he had no answer for. And the officers beat him so much in the ribs, they collapsed his brother's lung. This wasn't just Ronald Watts by himself. He had a team, like a gang within the Chicago Police Department. And he was the head commander. He was the leader. He was a sergeant. So he had a team of people, and charges were dropped on him and his team and the police officers that were involved in these crimes. Charges was dropped. They basically said they couldn't bring charges against him. And he's no longer an officer. He moved to Nevada, but now he lives in Arizona. But the people that they affected are still suffering from what happened. This brother was also framed. He did time in jail. When he got out, this is his sister holding a picture of him. But when he got out of jail, I think he was out about a year or two, starting his life over, and he was shot and killed. Many people think it was what had to do with this situation of him being exonerated and saying that he was framed. So many people believe it was Ronald Watts behind this. Once again, all the charges was dropped. Now, this sister right here, and I'm just going through them. This sister right here, she was framed coming from the store to her relative's house in Chicago, getting ready to move to Indiana to start a new life. And the police came in and they basically took her to jail, framed her for selling drugs, even though she had receipts for where she had just been and she had just got to the apartment. Because of that, she lost her voucher. You know, she lost her public assistant voucher to move. And so it kind of like messed up her life. And so that was the result of getting arrested. And this is on a day when she's about to go move and start a new life, a new beginning in a whole nother state. His brother was framed. He was locked up by Ronald Watts, framed for having drugs. When he took the plea bargain because he had no way to fight it. So when he's locked up, his relatives start dying, his grandmother, his uncles, his cousins, and he was not allowed to go to the funeral. So he was real upset about that because he did nothing wrong. This brother right here also framed, went to go visit some relatives in Chicago. Soon as he stepped outside, they gaffled him up, said he was selling drugs, took him down to the precinct, went to go search his mother's house. Allegedly, they said they found a gun. So he went to jail on drug and gun charges. Everybody I'm showing you was later exonerated, meaning they were found not guilty. All charges were dropped. This sister right here, her boyfriend was having problems with them, and she went and reported the misconduct to the place where you report police misconduct. Well, Ronald Watts took it out on her and framed her and her boyfriend, got him 4 years, and she did probation. Both her kids was going to college. They couldn't go to college anymore. They had to come back home and help out at home. But this is the path of destruction Ronald Watts created. Now, I wanted to make a point. You see all this damage this terrible brother done to his own people. I thought that this story is perfect to make the point about law enforcement, which I always make. And the point is that law enforcement comes from a culture of extorting and hunting down, taking the lives, and hurting slaves. Law enforcement developed from the patty rollers. In the North, there was a time when they were turning the immigrants, the Irish, the people they couldn't control, they were allowing them to be police officers, like complete psychopaths that would result to mob violence in an instant. So the culture of law enforcement as it has evolved through the years is still the same. And when you look at Black people or brown people or Asian people, when it comes to the culture, I can actually say without a shadow of a doubt, it's not about race. And I want y'all to hear me out. I don't want nobody to get upset when I say law enforcement, how they treat Black people or how they act with the uniform. It's not about race. I feel like something's in my throat. It's about the culture. It's like if you join a club or a biker club, there's a culture in that biker club. There's a culture in everything you join. So when you join these things, you take on that culture. Even though you're trying to be yourself and you're trying to be a good guy, eventually, as a law enforcement officer, you're going to take on the culture of how you treat Black people and how you look at it. So when a Black man puts on a uniform, yeah, he probably got good intentions. Maybe he wanted to be a police officer from the time he was a child. But that culture takes your soul, basically. It takes your soul. Now, look what this Black man was doing to Black people. Imagine all of the corruption that we don't hear about and we don't know. Imagine all of the gangs that we don't know about. Y'all feel me? Imagine all of that. Imagine all of the gangs, all of the people, I'm sorry, all of the officers that get away with this type of activity. This is street thuggish, ruggish activity. And this brother perpetrated that activity on his own people. He looked at Black people that were poor in the ghetto as easy targets, people that couldn't fight back, people that society will say, well, yeah, they sell drugs, they do crime. So it made it easy for him to target his own people. But that's the culture. That's it doesn't matter who you put in the uniform. This is going to be the end result. And unfortunately, this is a black person that was preying on other black people under the color of that uniform.